Virginia Beach officials are preparing zoning, taxes, and store spacing for retail cannabis sales, even though no legal retail market exists under Virginia law right now. What's really happening, and why this matters legally, is a gap in law and policy that has persisted for years. So, here's the twist: Virginia legalized possession and home cultivation in 2021, but no legal retail cannabis sales exist yet. That means people can have marijuana but cannot legally buy it from a store, and yet local governments are planning as if it will be legal. That's a real legal nuance many people miss. Most people think, if the governor supports cannabis sales and local leaders prepare for them, then retail cannabis is legal or soon will be. But under Virginia law, preparing does not equal permission, and that affects liability, enforcement, zoning authority, and risk. We'll unpack that. I'm going to break down why Virginia Beach is acting now, the real status of retail cannabis legalization in Virginia, what the legislature has done and hasn't done, what local governments can versus cannot do. All content here is compliance-focused legal analysis, not promotion or speculation. Welcome to Norfolk, Virginia Cannabis Hub, where we focus on Virginia-specific cannabis law, local governance, and regulatory clarity, so residents, business owners, and communities understand what the law actually says, not just what headlines suggest. Here's the context and Virginia's patchwork. Virginia's cannabis policy history includes 2021, legislature legalized adult possession and home grow, but not retail sales. 2024 and 2025, bills to create a regulated retail market passed the legislature but were vetoed by Governor Glenn Youngkin. Members included Delegate Paul Krizek and Senator Aaron Rouse. 2025, Virginia set up a joint commission to prepare regulations in advance of a potential legal market. That's the gap local leaders are responding to. Here's the legal explanation. Virginia's statutory structure around retail cannabis sales requires 1. Legislative authorization, a bill passed by both chambers. 2. Governor's signature. 3. Rules and licensing framework created by the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority. Right now only one of these exists historically, possession/home grow. Sales require new law. The latest 2026 bill proposals, like SB 542 and HB 642 introduced in January 2026, would establish a retail system starting no earlier than November 1, 2026 if passed and signed. That's the legal timeline proposed, but not yet law. How enforcement works, now. Here's the key compliance point. Until a retail market is legal, selling cannabis, even in a store, remains a crime under Virginia law. Local zoning ordinances cannot authorize illegal activity. Enforcement can be at the state level, Attorney General, state police. The local level, city attorney, zoning code enforcement. Through criminal prosecution if illegal sales occur. So planning may be smart, but acting as if retail is legal is risky. Let's pause and reframe what most people think is happening. Virginia is legal for sales, so local plans are just routine. That's not the legal reality. The reality is a status gap between preparation and authorization. This is where enforcement risk converges with good governance imperatives. Who this affects in detail. Consumers. People may assume retail is legal soon, but buying from unlicensed places is still illegal. Retailers/entrepreneurs. No licensing system exists yet, premature operations risk enforcement. Local governments. Cities can adopt zoning frameworks, but they can't permit something that current state law forbids. Medical cannabis framework. Medical dispensaries are separate and regulated under the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority. They do not automatically become adult-use retailers. Why this matters? The public safety and policy. Well, this matters because unregulated markets create safety concerns. Zoning without legal sales can mislead residents. Law enforcement and prosecutors need clarity. Equity and small business access depend on law, not speculation. Virginia's Joint Commission process is explicitly trying to address these tensions before legal sales begin. Here's a scenario example. Let's call it the legal payoff. Earlier, I mentioned the legal gap between preparation and permission. This is where that gap becomes real. Let's walk through two very different outcomes. Scenario A. The lawful path. The General Assembly passes a retail cannabis law. The governor signs it. The Virginia Cannabis Control Authority then issues licenses and adopts regulations. Only after all of that happens does a city adopt zoning rules that govern where licensed businesses may operate, how far apart they must be, and under what local conditions they can exist. In this scenario, every step follows statutory authority. The city stays within its legal role. Businesses operate only after receiving state approval. And enforcement remains predictable and limited to compliance oversight. That is what lawful preparation looks like under Virginia law. Scenario B. The risky path. Now compare that to a different situation. A city forms a task force. City leaders publicly discuss zoning, taxes, or store spacing. Those discussions are reported as signs that legalization is coming soon. A business owner interprets those discussions as implicit approval. They begin operating before state licenses exist, or position themselves as ready to operate the moment the law changes. But under current Virginia law, that interpretation fails. There is no license. There is no legal authorization to sell. And local discussion does not override state statute. Enforcement follows the law as written, not the expectations created by planning conversations. In this scenario, the same facts lead to a very different outcome. Investigations begin. Operations are shut down. And both businesses and regulators are left dealing with consequences that could have been avoided with clarity. This is not theoretical. Across Virginia, regulatory ambiguity has already strained growers, confused local governments, and exposed businesses to risk, long before retail sales are actually legal. And that is why the difference between preparation and permission matters so much. What to watch next? Key things to monitor. Committee debates on SB 542/HB 642. Governor's position. Effective dates and licensing timelines. How local governments adjust ordinances once the law is actual. Understanding each piece separately is vital. Here's a question. If local governments prepare before law exists, are they reducing risk or creating confusion about what's actually legal? Let me know what you think below. So here's the takeaway. Virginia Beach can plan for a future retail cannabis market, but under current Virginia law, retail cannabis sales are not legal yet. If this analysis helped you stay compliant and informed, hit like, subscribe for more Virginia cannabis policy breakdowns, and join the Norfolk City cannabis community for deeper legal discussions.